I don't know that I would have been that authentic if I hadn't literally lost my dad 2 months before they filmed it.
Oh, boy.
And so, and I say this jokingly, they didn't really do this, but it was almost like they knew, like, you know, I'd be eating a sandwich and they'd be like, did your dad like sandwiches?
Oh my gosh. And you're like, cut the show.
Everybody has a story to tell that makes them extraordinary, and that's what this podcast is all about. Welcome back to Conversations with Caitlyn.
Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Caitlyn. I am very much in my artistic era with these episodes, and I have never been more delighted to welcome my next guest, Sean Critchfield. Sean has been a dear friend, a mentor to me for many, many years. I think we're going on well over a decade now. He is also a motivational speaker, a teacher, an actor, an artist in spoken word, one of my favorite things that I get to see on my TikTok every day. And for those of you who love the show Queer Eye, he was on the most recent season here in Las Vegas. Please welcome to the show, Sean Critchfield.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
I'm excited. I love you, and I love that I get to be here and chat with you.
I know. You and I have been like ships in the night. I feel like the past couple of years. I see your wife, Kate, all the time. We always laugh and have wonderful discussions about all the fond memories I have with you performing and being coached by you. So for my listeners, because I know you very well, I would love for you to share your origin story, kind of how you got into the artistic world and some of the amazing projects that you work on.
Sure. Thank you. I joke that I'm an accidental polymath. I think it's less that I'm like super motivated to study a bunch of things and more that I have a short attention span. So,
which works to your advantage in this case.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have persisted, but I am an actor, educator. I have been in education as long as I've been acting. I'm a wilderness survival expert.
I forgot that piece. That's an important piece these days.
Absolutely. I dabble in magic. I do motivational speaking, have a TikTok channel. I'm a photographer.
I was going to say the photography business and your platform with that has been incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been really excited about that. The photography, the kindest thing that gets said to me often is you took my favorite picture of me. And so I think that a lot of that is because it's about positive self-image, positive expression. We're going for dreamy. We're going for mystical.
Yes.
So we have long conversations before we ever sit down in front of the camera. And then I have my sneaky tricks to get people so that they're more comfortable before we start pressing the shutter button. But I'm just really in love with it. And I'm really in love with the reactions that I get from people who come in and say, I hate every picture of me that's ever taken. And I'm like, I'll change that.
Well, this is now, you're all getting a very early sneak peek into who Sean is. He has an amazing ability to pull the best out of people. If I had to describe you, that's how I would describe you to people. You see the goodness in people. You see the hope. You see the possibility. And I think you are one of those very rare people that you look at the human race as something that's very beautiful.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's, I think it is inherent, but I think it's also a choice. And I think it's a choice that a lot of people forget, that kindness is a verb,
Yes.
And I think that for me, very young, there's a song and there's a lyric in it, and I'm forgetting who it's by, but the lyric is, the meaning of all wisdom is to believe in the good in man. And so I try to always remember that, I have a tattoo on the back of my neck that's a anvil. And the reason I chose the anvil is because the anvil remains unchanged in the face of adversity.
Yes.
And its whole function is to leave everything stronger and more beautiful. So it's a code that I live by, to remain unchanged by adversity and to make sure that I leave everyone that I meet stronger and more beautiful.
And that is just, we need more of that in this world, right? In a world that is so self-centered and so hyper-focused on what can I gain. I think that I'm very reflective this week. I'm missing my mom a lot this week, Sean, which is so interesting. It's probably no coincidence I'm interviewing you. But leaving the world better, that is something to hang your hat on. And I think we have lost in some ways lost and in some ways gained a lot of perspective around the human experience, helping each other, being there for one another, using our God-given or universe-given talents to really make this place better. Because when the world is better, I'm better.
Yeah.
And when I'm better, I'm in better service to others, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. As you know, I lost my dad about a year ago, and
Yes.
he was just a good man. And what I often tell people is, when I think about being a good man, my father is the mold that I try to press myself into. So
It's
I
beautiful.
definitely feel that. I feel that very much. And I think too, like we are spending so much time worried about us, and we talk about like, be afraid to die until you've struck a victory for humanity, or contribute your verse, and what will your verse be? Right. And I think that there are few things in the world that I would rather do than be a good father and a good husband and a good man. And I think if you do that drop of kindness, it ripples outward.
Yes.
And that is one of the few things that I believe can ripple into eternity. And
Totally.
so if we're really going to leave a mark on everything forever, it's going to be kindness. Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot, right? It's free. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It's holding the door open. It's telling someone they look nice.
Yeah.
It's holding space for a coworker if they're having a moment. It's just so simple, I think, is the word that comes to my mind. We were talking last week with my guest, Patty Barba, and her son has Down syndrome. And one of the things she said is, when I look at the world through his eyes, it's so simple. It's appreciating every single thing, having dinner with your family, wearing silly socks, going to Joy Prom and being with your friends. And I think, again, we complicate life, right? I feel like a lot of the things, even as artists, a lot of artists, people, we are a very interesting breed of person. And a lot of us, one of my all-time favorite actors was Robin Williams. That man... I have cried and laughed hard, never have laughed cried harder in some of his movies, right? Yeah. He was one of those most profound people. But I think what a lot of people took away from his passing is that artistry has a lot of torture in it. There's a lot of pain. People have lived a lot of life. And I think there's a lot of fragileness to that too, that sometimes makes artists a little more in tune, a little more emotionally intelligent, a little more sensitive.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think, there's that handful of things like popped up in my head. I saw this meme the other day. It's this guy talking to a bird, and he's saying to the bird, "What is the meaning of life?" And the bird says, "To enjoy it." And he says, "But it's so hard." And the bird says, "It wouldn't be so hard if you enjoyed it." And I think about that a lot.
That's like a dagger in the heart. I'm like, it's that simple.
Yeah. But with, being artists, I think like there's that another famous story where the guy goes to the doctor and he says, "I'm so sad and I don't know what to do." And the doctor says, "There's this clown, his name is Pagliacci, and you should go see Pagliacci." And he says, "Doctor, I am Pagliacci." Oh. I'm like, and just like that.
It's like, where do we go?
Yeah, Robin Williams was Pagliacci. He was.
Totally.
And it was just like, that one gutted me. I'm an adjunct at UNLV and I teach theater appreciation. And we literally talked about Robin Williams in class today and his contributions to art. And did you know that they're actually working on doing an installation in Boston of putting a bronze statue of him on the bench from Good Will Hunting? So you can go sit with Robin Williams on the bench.
I will be making that trek. Yeah. I have a lot to tell you, Robin. I do.
Yeah, me too.
I think, my recent reflections, in addition to just like the heaviness of like the world and trying to find outlets for that, right? Art is an outlet for that. I also think that a lot of times there's this very interesting barrier where people see you as an artist and they see you as that, and they don't really understand a lot of those layers. So my burning question to you, Sean, is number one, what was the Queer Eye experience like? And number two, how illuminating has that been for people that love you, admire you, that have known you? I mean, has that been kind of a game changer in your personal realm?
Yeah. I mean, I think that you touched on something that's relevant to that question, which is, actors, we train in experiencing emotion and not shying away from it, and understanding what the motivation in a moment is and why someone is feeling something and how you're experiencing it versus how I'm experiencing it. And in order to disturb our audience's peace, we must disturb our own.
Right.
And we're tasked with being excellent liars because their job is to tell the truth, and what a crazy thing that is, And so I was really glad to be on it because I try to move with authenticity. Like, well, I'm sure we'll get into the TikTok thing, but that was a unique challenge to remain authentic. And so when I went into the show, it was all about how do I remain authentic, And I want to say that they did a brilliant job. It's really genuinely done documentary style. So if you've seen the episode, you're genuinely getting a glimpse into my life and who I am with my family.
Right.
And so I think that was the biggest takeaway from that. I think the experience was beautiful, but it was crazy. It was manic. It was long days for a week straight. Wow. They came, they showed up, they took me home. I got to say goodbye to Kate and Brendan, and then we were separated for the full week. I was not allowed to contact them. I was not allowed to talk to them. And I was so excited for it because they get a chance to have the reveal too. They don't, they get to come in the
surprise for
end.
everyone.
Yeah. And I thought that was really well done. But then when you're completely exhausted and alone in a hotel room reflecting on everything that happened that day,
oh wow,
that's when the demons come out. And I think that, a good friend of mine, I said, I just wish that I could stand on a mountain and shout to the world that I'm good enough. And he said, that's easy. Can you sit in the corner alone and say to yourself, am I good enough?
See, and that piece, and you are like digging into my soul right now. The worthiness game is on all-time high right now for me personally. And so I thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
But I think, do you believe that if people were more okay with themselves, were more okay, more accepting, more internal with the understanding of who they are, that they would be better for the world?
Yes, absolutely. Again, I think it comes down to authenticity. And I think that that enables us to pour from a full cup and to move with authenticity. And I think people respond to authenticity. And I think, honestly, as weird and as plastic as some people feel like the world is getting, there's still this underlying sense of, if you're going to show me art, tell me the truth. And I think that's in every form of art. And we tend to reject things that are untrue. And the easiest way to be untrue is to not know who you are. And so I think that it also, when I'm creating something that's supposed to be put into the world in a positive space to affect change, people are like, man, he's got it so figured out. I'm like, no, I'm telling you the things I'm saying to myself.
That's right.
This is not me going, hey, I got it figured out and I'm telling you what to do. I'm sounding this out into the universe because I want it to come back to me.
Right.
So that's where a lot of that space comes from. And that's so important. I think that there are few people, and I'm sure you experience this too, that can sit in my grief with me like actors can. And I think that that's why we're so important, like the people that can come and sit and be present with you and unafraid are actors.
You got me with that one.
We're going to have to hug in a second.
I know, we got to hug it out across this big table. I agree with you. I agree with that sentiment. I'm getting ready to head to my show after this tonight, and I feel so grateful that I'm getting to have this conversation with you and go into that after the day and kind of week I've had, right? Because you're right. There's this kindredness, this spirit, this brokenness, this what the F this, that I feel like we are more relentlessly open to seeking and open to talking about. And, grief is weird, Sean. I know you get this because you were so close with your dad, just like I was so close with my mom. I mean, it'll be 4 years in June, and I had to have this talk with myself started about a week ago, really came full circle 2 nights ago. I have not grieved my mom's death the way I thought I would, but also I have not. I have shoved it down. And it's really hard for me to say that. So I want to thank you as my friend and somebody who loves and cares about me for holding space for that.
Yeah.
But it's such a hard, painful, again, I'm sitting with myself in the corner, crying it out, figuring it out. And I think I've realized that a lot of these pinchy points in my life is so good. It's so full. I'm so grateful. But these places that are icky, sticky for me, I feel that grief and that non-settle of that grief affecting me.
Yeah.
And almost like, it's like a little voice for me. Grief is a little voice in the back of my head that like whispers in my ear.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's so true. And I want to challenge you not to believe the lie that people are going to tell you how you have to grieve, and there's one way through it, and it's the way that you're doing it, and that's it, period. You know, grief is going to come up whether you like it or not, and it may last a moment, it may last 2. Yeah. And one of the things a friend of mine told me that's helped me a ton just in the last little bit is, he says, when you hit, like I'm having one now with you, and as we hit this pocket of grief, he said, I think of it like dowsing rods, and the dowsing rods just crossed.
Yeah.
And so it's up to you to go back and dig later, you know, and we can't always be in a space. So I just think that realizing that like it's coming out slowly as a gentle flow is just as valid as anything else. And so I just, on top of holding space, I want to try to affirm to you that don't believe the lie that you have to grieve the way that a textbook says, because it's BS.
And it's hard, right? When you're in the trenches of this, I'm in it. I'm well in the trenches. I haven't even peeked my head up like a little groundhog. Like I know this about myself. I think, you know, the reflection I have, because you said, you know, I want to be a good man like my dad, and that hits me so hard in the chest and in my soul, because it's the same for me with my mom. Like if I'm a quarter of the woman she was, I've done it. I've made it, right, to the top. And I think, you know, I will admit this, there's a tremendous obligation and burden. Sometimes it feels burdensome to me. In grief, to do the right thing and be the best version and be out there and living my life. Like, you know, I always say to myself, my mom would want me to live. She wouldn't want me to lay down and die. She'd want me to move forward, right? And I believe that about our parents. I don't think any parent, when they leave and they go to wherever, heaven, the great beyond, whatever you believe, you know, I don't think that they want us to sit and suffer, sit in sorrow. But I also think my takeaway from this grief process is that sorrow is part of the journey. And if you can't, and mine is like the elephant in the corner. I kind of peek at it every once in a while, and then I'm like, nah, I'm good. You know? And I think right now my elephant is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point that it's like, I can't ignore you anymore. You know? And so let me ask you a question. In your grief journey, because this is not the way I anticipated our talk going, and I love that.
I love that too.
I love that about this friendship. So how has grief kind of transformed the way that you move as an artist, as a man, you know, with others? Because I do think until you're in this unlucky club, the lost club, you think you know what you would do, and then it's completely different.
Yeah. I mean, it was strange because one of the reasons, so my father walked through that experience with so much grace and so much dignity, and it was an undignified 8 months that was rapid and aggressive. And he, like, I remember one point him being frail and in a wheelchair, and we're taking him back to the bed that he can't even stand up and get into. And as we're helping him, he looks up at us and he goes, here's a little song I wrote. You might want to sing it. Nope. And as we're putting him in the bed, he's singing Don't Worry, Be Happy to us.
And are you literally
sobbing
your eyes out?
Yeah. And so he always kind of walked through it in that space. And I think that part of the reason that my dad was able to let himself have that transition was because he knew that he had raised men that would take care of things. And so what was hard for me was I immediately entered into a space of I have to make sure everything's okay. And so I think that's why I still am putting off large portions of my grief. Like I had to wrestle with, am I some kind of jerk? Because one of the marks that my father was an epic human being was the amount of people that call him dad. And all the people that were sitting in the audience that lost a father, you know, because there's that old saying that they say blood is thicker than water, and that's not actually the quote. The quote is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. And it means that the family we choose is our family. And so they lost a father, and I'm watching these people grieve that we're not his biological children, and I'm not having that reaction. So I was dealing with guilt and all these things, and I think that it gave me greater empathy to understand that the world looks even more different than I was already aware that it did from the lens of each individual person. And to go, I'm not going to put my expectations of what you should be feeling on you.
Right.
I'm going to sit where you're at with you, and I'm going to try to understand it. You know? And so, having said that, you don't get to get off the hook. I want to tell you that you are joy when you walk into a room, even in your grief, and you always have been. And it's one of the things that I love about you is that if I had my back to the door, I would know you walked in. And I think that you, even when you think your light is dim, it's brighter than you think it is. And so I think that if that's any indication of whether or not you've made it, then you probably have, you know? So.
Leave it to Sean to put a pep in your step, a sparkle in your eye. Yeah, I think, you know, the other piece of this that kind of, it's on rotation, right? Mm-hmm. If I have my deep intrusive thoughts, right, mm-hmm. night and day, right, because they live with me 24/7. Mm-hmm. It's always yes, when grief hits, like, do I just let myself in? And sometimes I find myself being very amiable, right? The surrender. The word surrender is so hard for me, but it's true. I surrender to it. I cry, I laugh, I get angry, whatever that is. And then I love what you said, because I first of all, I wish I would have met your dad. I just listening to you talk about him in this moment, he was just an incredible person, right? Like, it's just the energy. I feel him here. He probably is with my mom having a good laugh. But it was the same, you know, with my mom. She was Mama Shay to everybody. And my mom grew up in a very broken home. Her parents loved her, but they didn't know how to do the family unit thing. And so, you know, to see someone be that for others so freely, it was hard. I'm going to say this, Sean. You know, it's like, but, and also, to your great point, why am I not like a crying mess in a ball? I feel a lot of grace and a lot of like gratitude to people like us and our families, our moms and dads and our siblings. Because when you live that long race of months and months, or my mom was 1.5 years, you are slowly, whether your soul acknowledges this to you, you are slowly saying goodbye. And there's something so beautiful to that. Like, someone asked me, very strange, you know, would you rather have lost your mom quickly, or would you go back and do that again if you had the choice? I said I would do it the same way. The only difference is that I would have given a lot of the nonsense, right, of COVID, because it was during COVID when my mom was sick. I would have put a lot of that noise to the back, like far, far back. Like, I would have just shut it off, because that took away, I think, from some of the opportunities for us to just really be with her. So when you did Queer Eye, I'm like, I gotta lighten the mood. I'm bringing it back.
Let's do it.
I'm doing it. So when you did Queer Eye, who nominated you? Were you shocked? Were you like excited? Were you like, OMG, I don't know if I want to do this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I don't know what I did to deserve this amazing friend of mine, Quinn, who's a producer. And Quinn has helped me with, like, I've done a handful of TV shows and things like that as a wilderness survival expert with Quinn. And so when it was coming to Vegas, Quinn emailed Kate and was like, Kate's my wife, and said, nominate Sean. Like, you have to. There's no way that he's not going to get on. And so she was very upfront about, like, I'm not involved with them. I can't do anything. I'm just telling you, as someone who knows what to look for, nominate Sean. So she nominated me, and then when they started contacting me to tell me that this was a possibility, they were having us shoot like little like videotape your kitchen so we can see it. And I was like,
how funny.
Every single time I was like, they're going to cut me after this. So I wasn't taking any of it
Yeah,
seriously.
you're like, this is fun. Let's just make some funny videos.
So they would point the video and I'd look over and be like, oh, hello there. I didn't see you. Come into my kitchen. And, you know, and I think that honestly, me being that ridiculous was part of what got me on the show. And so, and then they were amazing. Everyone is in cahoots. And my boss was smoke screening me. Like, even when she didn't need to, she was smoke screening me. Melanie Jupp at the Smith Center.
Yes. Yeah, I love her so.
Yeah, when I was still working at the care program at that point. And,
yes.
And so she calls me and she's like, hey, I just want to put you at ease. Like, they're not showing up tomorrow. They're just shooting B-roll. Like, you don't have to stress. Just do your thing. And that was the day they showed up. And so I was certain that Melanie was telling me the truth.
Because she's such a cherub. Like, she would never.
No,
she would never lie.
Yeah. And so I was definitely surprised. And it was incredible. And it was that same thing of the whole time. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way. And then it was one step closer and one step closer and one step closer. And then the producers came and said, hey, we want to take you out to dinner. We want to chat with you. And we go out to dinner. And I'm still like, there's no way. They're taking me to dinner.
Yeah,
and I'm still
to be like, you're not picked. Okay,
good
luck. Thank you so much.
And then they told us at dinner that we were chosen. And they were like, our design team is already there, like at your house looking and getting ready for the episode.
OMG.
And then it was 7 days of long days and such
like right
a blast.
then, you didn't get like time to prepare. It was literally the next day.
It was a few days later. So because we had to get a few things like, what are we going to do with the cats? And you know, and things like that.
Right, because they do the renovation, of course.
And so they did give us a little bit of prep time, but they want you to be authentic. That's the thing that I love about it is people are like, is it scripted? No, not at all. At most, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but like at most they would be like, oh, we missed that. Can you guys come in again?
Yeah.
And we walk in again, and then once it started rolling, what you see is what you get. That was it. You know.
And I feel like those fellows on the show, I fell in love with that show when it came out. I love the joy. I love the way that they, just like you, Sean, bring the good out in people. They do. They have that innate ability. And you know, when I heard you were on it, I'm like, oh, phew. There's no pulling it out of him. Like, Sean is just the most amazing guy, you know. But I think there was this just really beautiful showcasing of who you are, why you are so loved in our community, all of the beautiful things that you've done, the chance to give that back to you. I am so grateful to Quinn. I am so grateful to your beautiful wife, Kate, because you deserve to be someone that people get to look at and go, yeah, this is how we live. This is how we do it.
Thank you.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, that wound up being the takeaway, was that I have a hard time allowing others to do for me. And that became the whole thing. And it doesn't seem like it, but I resisted it the whole way.
Oh, yeah.
And it was hard for me. And even with Karamo, like, he's the reason that I'm seeing a therapist now.
Right.
You know, he was upfront. He said, we have a week. I can get you started, but you have to keep going from here, you know? And so it was beautiful. All of them are exactly who you see.
Yes.
We're performers, so we turn it up a little bit for the camera.
Yeah.
But what you see is what you get. That's who they are. And they are real good about connecting with you when the camera's off and talking to you and fostering a relationship. And, you know, and it was really beautiful. I was particularly close with, like, I would have just named all 5 of them, but you know, but like I had lots of time to talk with Jeremiah, and I had lots of time to talk with Anthony, and to just really connect. And it's beautiful.
It's just gorgeous. And I love translating that experience to TikTok. I love when that emerged, and your friend Dan and Nicole that were also somehow tied, right? They were on the season, I think. To see the way you've taken this, and so I need to like not ruin the surprise. So Sean, tell my listeners what you've been doing on TikTok, because it is so, you guys, I'm gonna link all of his socials. You need to follow him. Like, if you need a pep in your step, an uplifting word, just to hear a voice always tell you that like life is good and you can do it. Sean is your guy.
Thank you. Yeah. I didn't know what I wanted it to be. And it was kind of goes back to that authenticity thing where they warned us that your social media was going to get a spike and things like that. And I found that other heroes, that happened more for them than it did for me, but which is actually a good thing because it was like, I can't rely on this. It got me started, but I can't rely on that.
Right.
So what am I going to do? And at first, like I posted a few silly ones that were like my take on what was trending.
Yeah.
And then this one day I thought to myself, like, this is not me and this is not authentic. And what people loved about my episode, there's like a whole Reddit forum about my episode that was all them saying like how authentic and how loving and how genuine I was. And I was like, so I'm just going to do that. And all signs point to that's never going to work. You know, that's not what TikTok is.
Something gentle and loving and good can't possibly, you know, outperform the celebrities twerking on the street, right?
Yeah.
And yet.
Yeah. And I finally said, okay, then that's the hill I'm going to die on. It's either going to succeed or it's going to fail. But what I'm going to do is I just became aware of how desperate even myself, everyone is, for someone to say, you're doing okay. You got this. You can do this.
Yes.
How desperate that even someone that they don't know. One of my favorite comments said, thank you, random guy on the internet, for making me feel like it's going to be okay. And I feel like that doesn't work unless they believe that I care about them.
Right.
Because I do. And
and he does, people. Like, this is not performative social media. This is literally who Sean is. If he met you on the street and you were like, I'm having a bad day, this is the type of man that would wrap you in a hug and say, you know what? You can do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We, there was on YouTube, there was a comment, there was this long comment about how they were in a really dark place and hadn't been taking their medication, and they saw my video and they said it just gave them enough space to come up for air. And they reached out to a friend and there's like, I've had my glass of water, I've taken my medication, tomorrow's a new day. And I read that and I thought to myself, like, if no one else ever in the universe watched a single one of my videos ever again, done.
And it's just like, I think, you know, in a world that tells you consume more, for you to be more, you must have the outfit, you must eat this type of food, have this type of water bottle, do this, you need to pill it up, all of these things. Like, we forget that the most basic, most powerful medicine, most transformative thing is connection. It's human connection. Why will robots and automations, yes, they're beautiful. They help ease some of the pain points in life, but that can never replace the heart and humanity of connecting with another human being. And the vulnerability it takes to be that for someone, Sean, it's a very large, tall order, if you will. But I think, you know, to your point, and for anybody listening and anyone who knows Sean, because a lot of my listeners do know Sean, you know, you will hearken back to the Facebook days of My Wish for You Is. Sean would do these posts like every week, sometimes every day during COVID. I feel like I would literally rush to your page to be like, what is the wish today? I need the wish, you know? Yeah. And so I love that you've translated that so poetically into TikTok. It feels comfortable. It feels organic. It doesn't feel forced. And I love that you also as an artist saw that you're like, I don't want to do this other stuff. Like, this is just not me. I think it takes a lot to say that when you know that some of these, you know, the title or the funny photo that you put up is what grabs people, to really stay true to yourself. Yeah.
I think, again, like you're saying, it comes back to authenticity. And I think that what I realized with Facebook was, you know, I have a large number of people that are friends on Facebook because I would go do a gig somewhere and I would develop a network over a course of a year and then move somewhere else. And the easiest way for us all to come together was this thing. And I looked at it and I was like, I have this avenue to just say something positive into thousands of people's lives.
Yes.
And why would I use it for anything else? Why?
Correct.
That's it. And so that was where all of it came from, was I mean it and I'm here. And you're right. Sometimes like I get comments that are like, it's just so heavy, I don't know if I can do it. And now I have a responsibility with that person. And I'm not a therapist. I don't know what to say.
Right.
I don't know where they're at. I don't know how to meet them there. But all I can do is say, hey, I do care. I do care. And it's not for show. It's not performative. And there's like one person that, if someone really wanted to look, they could probably figure out who it is, where I said, I'll check on you. And we talk on TikTok. We just message back and forth. And because the response was thank you. And they just really needed someone to say, hey, you doing okay today?
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's, yeah, I'm doing great. And that's it. But how better to spend my time than that? And I don't know if it will ever become profitable, and I don't care. And I mean, we're human. I'm not going to be like, oh, I get to put joy into people's lives full time, and that's my job. Okay, great, I'll do it. But
yeah.
But it's been fun to watch it very slowly continue to increase. And I don't look at that as like, okay, I'm going to be an influencer. I look at that as like, okay, I'm putting things that are authentic and loving into the world, and people are responding to them, and more people are finding it.
Yep.
Great. Let's keep going.
And I guess, my for reflection, when my mom passed away and we had her funeral, and there were people literally, my mom was in her early 70s when she passed away, and there were people from every decade of her life there. Mm-hmm. And Sean, there was a moment I will never forget. We're leaving the church and we're going to this, we called it a celebration because it was. Mm-hmm. And, I'm having a tearful moment, but I literally sat there in the car on the way and I just said to myself, how profound that your life, my mom, my little sweet mom, she came from nothing. Mm-hmm. She grew up in a small steel mill town called Pueblo, Colorado, to two parents who had a lot of demons, who didn't stay together. Every odd was stacked against her, and yet her life, that ripple, I love that you used that word earlier, the ripple of our life, the sum of us, is the way we impact others. Yeah. And that, to me, is worth more than $1 billion. And yes, do I want to do great and make money and have fun and bring joy? Heck yeah. But also, when I die, will my tombstone say she had $1 billion? Or would it say she was kind and she was funny sometimes?
Yeah.
Or
loving mother.
She went out of the way, right? Like, that to me is... And it's so sad that we wait until funerals to say the things on our heart, the profound things that we actually feel about people in our life.
Yeah.
I think that's so backwards. And it's so, but also like an experience like Queer Eye is so interesting to me in the sense that there is this just authentic, vulnerable piece of it that I feel like the reason people like that show is because they look at Sean and they go, I see that in me. And I see that feeling and that the fears and the thoughts and the things and the what we're doing and how hard life is, like that reflection, that is the beauty of humanity. I really do believe.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like watching the grace with which my mom dealt with all of it, like she's heroic. She's heroic with everything that she went through, and so I picked up the heaviest parts of the burden that she couldn't, because her job was to love my dad. That's it. We'll do everything else. You love my dad. That's it.
How long were they married?
52 years.
Wow,
when Kate and I got married and they did the couples dance, Kate and I were married in October because we weren't sure my dad was going to make it to the celebration, and then we had this celebration where we invited all the friends and family in January, and so. January, and then we're married. I got this backwards.
Is okay.
And so when my dad did make it, and they did the dance, and they were the last couple when they say, like, if you've been married this long, step out, and they were the last two. And, my dad got to do the father-daughter dance with Kate, and I just did not, he was glowing. He was beaming, and it was just like that was one of the last things that he got to have in this life, And
what a beautiful gift that your love is, and to be able to reflect that love. I mean, 52 years, people. Please in the comments let us know if you've been married 52 years. My parents were married 40 when my mom passed away, and it's as an adult child, it's very odd. It's very unsettling almost to see your parent. This was their whole life, this person. They built everything on that. And I think, you know, when people are like, why do families matter and why is that important? I'm like, we point to your dad and mom, my dad and mom, like, this is why, right? Yeah. Because was it all kisses and rainbows every day, all day? Absolutely not. Yeah. And raising kids and all of the interesting intricacies of that, right? But it's just, it's so amazing, I think, I don't know, were your parents both artistic people? Like, were they theater performers? Okay, mine aren't either. Okay, I was wondering. Because that's also something that's interesting as an artist, not coming from that background. It's always interesting to see, like, I feel like your parents were probably similar to mine. They would show up for every show, every performance, lockstep with you, making sure, you know, when you're young, you have all your things that you know, to do it. But I feel like art is one of those things, why I keep doing art. Because there are days I'm like, why am I doing this? It's my gift that I'll leave behind. Yeah. You know, it's your gift that you'll leave behind, to have your voice and your face and your laughter and your stories. Like, every time I watch your TikToks, I think about them. I'm like, this is so beautiful. Like, this in 20 years, 30 years, 40, 50 years, when Sean has grandbabies or whatever it is, this is such a gift, you know, to have that. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So my son, he's Kate's son, my stepson, but he's my son. You know, yes. I think that having that space and seeing my parents love everyone that came into their lives like their children, you know, it is so important. And that enabled me to come to that space with Brendan where that was organic and that was genuine. And he calls me his dad. And he, just what you were talking about, one of the things that he just recently told me was that he wants to take my last name. He's 20 now, and he wants to legally change his last name to my last name. And I told him, I don't care what your last name is. You're my son. So I'll love you no matter what.
Yeah, but it means the world to me. And so one day, Brendan's very clinical. He's very computer science. He's very
bright. I've heard from Kate. Very bright.
Very bright. And so everything tends to be nonchalant with him. But I asked him, like, what was the change? And he said, because I'm going to build a legacy. And if I do, the name that I want to leave it to is you and my mom's name, you know? And so that's why. So it's that same thing you're talking about that's a legacy. And that's where I come back to what we talked about earlier, where you can continue to try to hold up a measuring stick, but the truth is that your birthright is you are her legacy. And that's so right. Like, you carry that with you no matter what,
always, whether you like it or not,
always,
right?
Yeah, always.
It's definitely, you always have such a poetic way of saying things, and I love that. It is. And I'll tell you, you know, when we were doing a lot of the photo type things for her celebration, Sean, it was so funny because people were like, you look like her, you know? And I was like, yeah, like, I do. I definitely, like, there's always been moments. I'm like, me and her have the same eyes. We have our voice. For many, many, many months after she passed, people would call, you know, all the things that you don't know about death until you do, would be calling her cell phone. Some of them didn't know that she had passed, and I would answer, and they're like, Davette? And I'd be like, no, this is Caitlyn. And, oh, you sound just like her, you know? And it's just, it's those small things about us. I'm trying in my middle life, Sean, to honor this machine because the body is the most magnificent machine ever created in all of time, but also to remind myself that being present is the biggest gift we can give to people. And I am so bad at it. I'm trying so hard between my ADD, the cell phone, the schedule, right? It's so easy to just pick it up and, yeah, I'm listening. But am I listening? Am I really listening? Yeah. But I think, like, your time, your presence, your voice, your laugh, the way you made people feel, you know, I know I kind of touched on this earlier, but it is so tremendous. And I really feel like these deep losses, they root us in that. Like, when I see you, I'm taking a good look, right? I'm listening to you. I want to remember my time and my moments with my friends, with my family, with other artists, you know. I've done a couple of gigs with your wife, and we've had so much fun.
Yeah.
She's such a beautiful person.
I couldn't agree more.
You hit the lotto, Sean. You did.
Definitely. Yeah.
And she did too.
I think that it's interesting, the convergence of like, if you are moving in a place that is truthful, how things are going to align how they're supposed to. And I try to remember that as like, I'm in the middle of like a lot of hardship right now. And I'm like, things are aligning how they're supposed to.
Yes.
And so even with Queer Eye, like, you had commented on how authentic I was in the episode. I don't know that I would have been that authentic if I hadn't literally lost my dad 2 months before they filmed it.
Oh, boy.
And so, and I say this jokingly, they didn't really do this, but it was almost like they knew, like, I'd be eating a sandwich and they'd be like, did your dad like sandwiches?
Oh my gosh. And you're like, cut the show.
Yeah.
Cut the show.
I was a raw nerve, and I'm so glad, because it forced me to, we all performers have there's a camera and lights, hit that performer switch.
Turn it on, baby. Turn off the reel, turn on the zhuzh. Yeah. And I like what you said, though. People don't want to be lied to. They want to be told the truth. And that's our job as artists, right? We are holding up a mirror to the world, and we're saying we're inviting you into this story and these characters. And there's never been a more important time for art, in my opinion. I mean, you and I were kind of, I think, having a little back and forth here about art and its importance and its relevance, and that's being tested right now, right? With our government, with our social structures, the question, the musing about art. Everybody wants to consume it, but when it comes to the funds needed and the spaces and places that create this for us, it's hard. And I think the reason art is so controversial is because it is a truth teller.
Yeah.
And it's about holding the mirror up, and it's about playing characters. My favorite roles I play are ones that are uncomfortable because it makes me look at the world through that person's purview, right?
Yeah. So I run a teen theater called Alchemy Arts Academy
Yes.
at a VTC, and we don't shy away from work. Our ages are 13 to 18.
Love it.
And we tell parents on day one, we're going to challenge our artists, and you need to know that. Like, we're never going to do anything inappropriate, anything dangerous, anything emotionally dangerous, but we're going to push them. So we just did Bang Bang You're Dead.
Yes.
And we were having a discussion about it, and one of the artists said, when I'm at my school and I tell them it's about a school shooter, the response is, why would you do that? And another one of our students said, because that question is being asked. And it is our job to there's a great quote. What is it? It's to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. That's our job. And I think the reason that art, even now, even not more than ever, because we've watched this cycle on repeat.
We have every decade of our lives.
Yeah,
yes.
Some of the first people into concentration camps were actors because we're dangerous,
right?
And we're the mouthpiece for speaking truth to power. That's what we do. That's our whole job, and that's why art thrives in economic downturns.
Always, and they seek you out. They look for you. And I think I don't know if it's just because I am older now, but I feel like a lot more children, young people, are really gravitating towards performing arts, the written, spoken word. It's very impressive. And I think, back to your comment about TikTok with people leaving these comments, people are lonely. They are desperate to connect, and art is the quickest connection to a group of people because you're entertaining and you're exciting and you're sparking those conversations, right? Don't you hope when you leave a show that it stirs something in your soul? What is my takeaway? What could we do better? How does this show impact the way I see the world, right?
Yeah. So again, I'm teaching this theater appreciation class, and it's Theater 100 for non-majors. And I'm like, go see a show. We're going to seminar discuss like all these topics.
Yes.
And so they see the NCT shows, and then we talk about them for like 4 weeks. And they're like, how are we going to talk about this for 4 weeks? And I'm like, trust me.
There's a lot to cover.
Yeah. And one of the things that they asked me recently was, what is the greatest gift that we can give to an audience? And I said, the conversation in the car on the way home. That's the greatest gift that we can give. And so that's exactly what you're talking about. That's our job, is to inspire and to motivate and to challenge. And we also theater tends to be socially early adopters. And so we are some of the first people to hold space for these ideas as they're coming up. Yeah.
And understanding that I think, we live in such a divisive environment. They want to disconnect. They take that for however you want. This dissension. And I think the reality is that is why art is so terrifying, because it is an equalizer, it's a leveler, it's a connector, it's something that 99% of people can find something they like about a show or something. But it's also, it's such a great medium to have these painful discussions, right? I mean, and it doesn't matter. I'm in Crazy for You right now. This is hands down for me one of the most uplifting, hee hee ha ha, happy-go-lucky shows I've been in a long time. It's feel good for the cast. We have and our cast, I can't say enough. These are the nicest, most non-drama people, which probably sounds strange to you because we're doing theater. But I was thinking about it one day when I was driving home from rehearsal, the intrusive thoughts. Here's this show about this rich New Yorker meeting this girl from, Bumble nowhere, Nevada, who is barely making it. And these worlds collide and they learn something from each other. She gains this tremendous confidence and this just like, wow, the world is so big. And he gains this perspective of like, look how simply these people live. And yet this is where I create the best piece of art I've created, right? Yeah. And it's just, again, so simple. This show does not have to be that deep and cerebral, but as an artist even, I think we are challenged to find that color, that flavor, that texture that delivers the human experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it touches on half of the equation, which is to comfort the disturbed.
Yes.
Like sometimes we just need to go and sit and release and forget and remove grief and laugh and sing along and tap our toes. And then at the same time, I think that good art, and I think that this ebbs and flows and changes, and I think we are hopefully firmly in this for forever or for a while. It's no longer about, and the moral of the story is, I'm inviting you to the discussion surrounding this question.
Yes.
And that you were still able in this thing that most people would call fluff to go, no, there is a dramatic question here.
Right.
That needs to be reflected upon. What a gift it is to be a performer.
What a burden, what a gift, what an exciting unknown that you step into. It's beautiful. Now, Sean, you've done a lot. You've done stage, you've done screen, you've done one of my all-time favorite things you did was that spoken word piece in that beautiful old church. I don't know if I'm bringing this back to mind for you. You were in Tournament of Kings. You were Particle Inc. You were that beautiful character. That if you did not get to see that in Vegas, you really missed out. It was profoundly moving. But what would you say as an artist, number one, what's been one of those favorite projects? And number two, what's your advice to young artists that are out there kind of like, I want to do this, but I'm afraid, or maybe I don't know how to get started, since you do work with so many young people?
Yeah. Let me do the second half, and then we'll come back to the first.
It. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of questions.
My advice. So I was an extra when I was 13 on The Good Son with Macaulay Culkin and Elijah Wood, and I was a weird kid because I wasn't watching the shows that others were. I was watching things like medical dramas, like St. Elsewhere.
Yes.
And David Morse was in St. Elsewhere and was the dad in Good Son
how cool.
in the very beginning. And I walked up to him and I was like, were you Boomer on St. Elsewhere? And he looked at me like I had three heads. He was like, how do you know St. Elsewhere? And he pulled a chair up and we talked about it. And I said, what's your advice? And he said, just act. Just act. And when he gave me his autograph, he wrote, just act, David Morse.
Wow.
And so that stayed with me. And so that would be my advice first is like, act, build your chops.
Yes.
And then I think beyond that, I would say, for those of you that have been doing it for a while and are like, how do I take my next step? It's you are not a professional actor, you're a professional auditioner. And if you do your job well, you get to act.
That's right.
So you need to be doing the reps and putting in the time and learn to not take it personal and grind and submit and do the thing.
Yep.
a number of career professional actors on speed dial on my phone. And if I called any of them right now and I said, is it hard to be a professional actor? Their answer would be no, it's hard work. But so many of us confuse hard for hard work. And the only thing you get from effort is results. And
That's
so
right.
if you stay at it, you'll be fine. And then for artists that are like, I have fear, I have anxiety, good, you care.
That's right.
You care.
That's right.
And so step through it and realize that you have those nerves and you have that fear, because everything you want is on the other side of fear.
That's right.
Like where we transform your chrysalis, your crucible, is going to be accepting that fear and doing it anyways.
That's
and
right.
so just step into it and try. And
You just gotta take your shoulder. It's like you're a football linebacker, right? You just gotta ease into it. And you're right. And the second you do that, you know, I've had many moments in my life where that's been the invitation, right? And I look back and I'm like, I was so scared for nothing.
Yeah.
Like it ended up being such a cool, transformative time, you know. And I love that. So just act.
Yeah.
Fight through the fear.
Yeah.
I do love it.
Yeah, and hone your craft, you know. For projects, Tournament was incredible. It was more than a decade of my life.
Yes.
Particle Ink was stunning and beautiful and was a joy to go in every day. That I had a puppet who's the interstellar storyteller named Story.
Yes.
And he was just this cheeky little puppet who was kind of the narrator, and he was his own person. And I have a picture, I'll send it to you, of me standing holding him during the last show, and I didn't know they took the picture. And everyone was like, that is heartbreaking, because I was holding my friend before we went out to do our last moment together. But the one that always comes up is An Iliad, the one-man Iliad that I did was my favorite work that I've ever done. I've never been in a more challenging production. It was a one-man show of the telling of the Iliad from about 5 years into the war till just before the Trojan horse. It was 97 pages of just me, with the responsibility of keeping it interesting and keeping people engaged and making it accessible and being completely honest the whole time. And I was flat wore out every time I did it. We remounted it after a few years, and I was like, if I do this again, it's going to put me in the ground. Like, it's that hard.
That is more than a marathon. That's like a 100-mile foot race.
I'm sure you remember, there was a moment towards the end where I had to list off 157 wars in a row.
Yes.
And first of all, the task of memorizing that, but then also going, you have to sit in this despair with me for 157 wars and take my hand, we're going to get through this together. I promise it's going to be worth it. And to have to walk people into that darkness was like,
it's exhausting.
Task. Yeah, such a task.
But it's so, I mean, if my listeners take nothing else away, this man did a one-man show, 97 pages. If you've ever memorized lines, speeches, anything, that is a massive undertaking, and you're bouncing the energy off the audience, I would presume, because you don't have those kind of castmates to kind of do that with. But it's so beautiful. It's so unsurprising. If you ever do it again, I will be front and center.
I love that.
I'm like, are we feeling a remount? Like, what are we thinking?
We
Sean's like,
almost
maybe.
did. We almost did.
I know.
Yeah, it was supposed to go up to a theater in Oregon, and we were going to do it in town first. But then they had a problem with the pipes, and they had to retrofit the whole theater, so they canceled the whole season. That season
to actually make the building like safe.
Yeah, but you know, it's also like, I think that the unsung hero in that production, heroes, were my stage manager, Carolyn Clark.
Yes, Carolyn.
Our dramaturgs and Ben Lowy, my director.
Love Ben.
He often talks about it too, that we kind of had this like symbiotic relationship when we were performing, where he was such a thoughtful and sensitive director. And I remember at one point there's like a climax in the scene, and it's important. It's at the end of this war moment where the poet realizes he's been caught up in the fury, and we had worked hard to hit a particular emotional peak. And I realized as I was approaching it that I wasn't where I needed to be in my emotional arc to get where I needed to go. So I started ramping early. And afterwards, Ben came up to me and he was like, you started ramping early. And I was like, how the hell
did you know that?
Yeah. And he was like, I was worried. I was like, where is this going to go? And then I realized as you were building, I kind of deconstructed and realized why you had started early.
Right.
And he's telling me this, and the whole time I'm staring at him like, how did you know what was going on in my internal emotional landscape? And he was
Amazing.
like, I'm performing it with you, Sean.
Right.
I know the show as well as you do. And so, how
brilliant.
wonderful a director I had to do that. I remember there was after one rehearsal, and it was like one of the first times where we had done the full thing full out. And he said, he's like, you have to go there. You have to go there completely. I need to know what it looks like.
Yeah, I have to see it. Yeah.
I just bared my soul and did it, and I laid down on the stage, and he laid down next to me on the ground, and we just didn't say anything. We just laid on the stage together, and then he looked over at me and he said, it's amazing what you can do in 24 hours. And, you know, from like the rehearsal before to this one. And so I think that is also that symbiotic relationship. And what you said about, I'm in tune with the audience. I see you and I'm connecting with you, and there is no intermediary. There is no fourth wall. And so, yeah, it was beautiful, beautiful show and challenging work.
And you don't know how the audience is going to respond, right?
Yeah.
We hold nothing. The audience could love it, they could hate it, they could be clapping, they could be talking, they could be silent. And that's the beauty of it too, right? Is you never really know what you've done until after, if you have the chance to kind of, you know, integrate with the audience and talk to them. And I always love talkbacks for that, because sometimes they could be dead silent, but you have just hit their soul in such a profound way that they were moved, right? And for people, it's different, right? It's just like grief. It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Audience responses to shows, to the stories we're telling, can be different at any time.
Yeah. Sometimes
beautiful.
quiet audiences are thoughtful audiences.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, just Sean dropping truths, guys. Well, I could talk to this man all day long, probably for another 3 hours, but we have a time limit here. So, Sean, I would love, at the end of every episode, I offer my guests a chance to give a 1-minute mission pitch. Like if it's about your company, your craft, what you're doing. So I want to offer that to you, because I feel like we would be doing the world a massive disservice if they did not know what Sean Critchfield is up to.
I appreciate it. I would say make art. And if you don't know how to make art, then let's make art together. If you want me to come talk to your people and inspire them, reach out and let's make art. If you want to come have a picture with me and look like a dreamy forest elf, like come do that. Let's make art. If you are young and you're wondering where to go and what to do, my company has built themselves on the integrity of our culture first. That's the most important thing, is that we are raising thoughtful artists and radical thinkers. And so if that's appealing to you, come make art with us. But if you take nothing else away, we have to speak truth to power and make art. If you are thinking about a podcast, I know a great place where you can do that. I know people
we're sitting there.
I know people you can talk to about it. If you've got a brilliant camera in your phone, go take pictures today. Start your TikTok account. You're not even going to know what it is for 50 videos.
That's right.
You're going to have
There it
no
is.
idea. So just start doing it. Start putting truthful, good art into the world, because you have to tell your story, because the rest of the world needs it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Sean Critchfield, my incredible guest this week on Conversations with Caitlyn. I hope that you took this as uplifting and as powerful as this conversation was for me sitting here with him today. I will be linking all of his social media information. Like, subscribe, go watch his episode on Netflix. This man is a world changer, if you haven't already guessed. And thank you so much for following along. Make sure you subscribe and tune in every week, Tuesday at 10 a.m. Thanks so much.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe, and follow us at Convos with Kate on all social platforms. It would mean the world to me. See you next week.